Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's presentation as part of the Industry Insight webinar series. The topic today is legal calendaring, mobile and specialized for the needs of attorneys. Speaking today will be Ron Collins from Amicus Attorney. The Industry Insight webinar series is hosted by the ABA Legal Technology Resource Center. To stay updated on upcoming webinars or view previous videos, visit ambar.org/industryinsight. You can also stay updated on legal technology news through our blog, www.lawtechnologytoday.org. Ron Collins is an experienced attorney, a fellow of the College of Law Practice Management, and an internationally recognized author and speaker on the subject of law and technology. He is also the founder and CEO of Gavel & Gown Software, a company dedicated to providing practice management solutions that work the way lawyers do. The presentation today will be followed by a Q&A. Please enter your questions into the question box in the webinar panel on the right side of your screen. We will address all questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this webinar, and we will be sending the video in a follow-up email in a few days. You can also keep an eye on our blog, which again is www.lawtechnologytoday.org. Thank you all for joining us today, and we'll now begin the webinar.
Thanks, Rose. Thank you, everyone, for joining me this afternoon. Really happy to be here, and thank you to the ABA for asking me to present to you. And I want to talk with you this afternoon about one of my favorite subjects and one that's so important to all of us, and it's calendaring. And if you've joined me, then it matters to you too. And in fact, it matters so much to every practicing attorney. We often overlook how much of our lives are driven by the complex scheduling needs that we have as attorneys. And as the world gets more and more mobile, and as we have more and more devices and more calendars, the potential complication or confusion for all of this gets even worse. So what we need to find is a simple, clean solution that works for us as attorneys and ensures that we're always on the same calendar no matter what device we're using. So that's what we're here to talk about. A lawyer's calendar isn't just a calendar. It's not something that you can put up on the wall and write a few things into the box for each day. They're called a lawyer's daybook for a very good reason. They run our day, and our business really depends on effective calendaring. If you can't calendar effectively, the odds are you're going to be sued for malpractice. So it's really important to us, and we have very specialized needs. What we don't want to be is looking like this with time ticking and us not sure where anything is or when it's going to happen. We need to be in control of our calendars. So, attorneys have special calendaring needs. What are they? Let's stop and think about it. First of all, matters. Most of us tend to work on client matter files. Our lives are organized by each separate client matter file that we open, and all the information, correspondence, pleadings, whatever your type of law is, gets organized in that, as does the scheduling. Each case or transaction has its own unique schedule, and when you put them all together, if you have 50, 70, 150 ongoing matters at any given time, the schedule for each of those has to interact. That becomes your hectic day. You need to be able to put them all together, watch out for conflicts, and see the relationships of given events. For example, if you see that you have a cross-examination on your calendar, it's no good just to see that. You have to know which of your 75 different active matters that cross-examination might relate to. Deadlines. We all know how critically important they are in the practice of law. If you don't show up for court at the appointed hour on the appointed day, your client's matter can be dismissed and you're left holding the bag for the results. We have to be there, we have to be on time, we have to file documents on time. They're so critically important, and we can be personally responsible if we miss something. Bring forwards. Our task lists are endless, and if like Outlook, you just have one long, never-ending task list, well, first of all, you don't pay any attention because it's overwhelming, and second of all, you don't end up bothering to schedule many of your reliable and important tasks. So lawyers have long had the concept of bring forwards, or BFs, tasks to schedule somehow in our daybook into the future that come up and alert us when and as we need it, but not until. Of course, there's limitation periods, and there's a series of related events, for example, court dates. I mean, docketing rules can be complex in terms of when certain pleadings are due, when responses are due, how long before a given hearing different actions have to be taken. And again, the consequences for missing any of those can be severe. And it's not just about litigation. Many other areas of practice have complex scheduling needs as well. For example, intellectual property lawyers have my respect. By the way, I am a litigator, but intellectual property lawyers, I can't believe the length of time out they have to schedule equally important tasks, equally vital deadlines. If you miss renewing a trademark or a patent, it goes forever. You have to know 16 years out or 20 years out in some cases when certain steps have to be taken. And many transactional matters have equally important and precise transactional schedules that all have to go into your calendar. Then you get all of that into your calendar and the other side phones up and wants to adjourn and things get complex. You need to see the history of what happened when. And that's just for you. Now you work in a team. You have a paralegal, you have a legal assistant, they're working together. Perhaps you're lucky enough to have a junior working with you on the files. They have some of their own files as well. You need to be able to find time you're all working together, assign and delegate tasks or meetings, find times you can meet. And last but certainly not least with all of those calendar needs, you want to be able to bill for it all. I hardly need to tell you how important that is. So those are just a few of our complex and specialized calendaring needs. Most people don't need to do all of that, but we do, and much more than that. That was just a quick summary. And at the same time, because of the pressures of a modern practice, it has to be easy and fast. In the old days, your daybook was kept by your assistant or paralegal, and they'd come in and write things in your book, and they'd handle all of your scheduling, and they'd tell you where to be when. Well, it's not that simple anymore. It's more often your phone in your pocket that's telling you where to be or what you have to do next. So we need to see all of these complex scheduling things on our mobile devices as well. So let's have a look at a mobile calendar and see how that responds to attorneys' needs. Well, I'm willing to bet that everybody listening to me this afternoon has some form of mobile calendar. Typically, it's either an iPhone or an Android device like a Samsung Galaxy. On the screen here, I've shown you an iPhone calendar for a couple of days ago, and that's what we're used to seeing. That's an iPhone calendar. It can show me that I have depositions, but not on what matter. And because I'm a litigator, I do so many depositions. Lunch with co-counsel, who's that? Call client? I have dozens and dozens of clients. So while that tells me what my commitments are today, it's really not very helpful. And it's inert, as you'll see a little later. There's not much more it can do other than put up a reminder that those events are coming up. Yet at the same time, the calendars built into these devices are so clever, simple, fast, clean, they work the best with each device. For example, if you've got an iPhone, you're probably in the back of your mind thinking about getting an Apple Watch as well. The calendar integration between them is really cool. That's great, but the Apple Watch calendar links to the Apple iPhone calendar, and so you need to be using the Apple iPhone calendar to make all of that work. So it's usually best to stick to the native calendar on those mobile devices. Oh, but there's a problem. As we've just established, those mobile devices really don't understand the complex calendaring needs of attorneys that we've just went through. How do we resolve that? Well, let's talk for a second about Outlook, because most mobile calendars get their data from Outlook. That is to say that the one that you can have your only calendar be the calendar on your iPhone or your Android phone. But that's a really skinny practice, because it means that's a separate independent calendar and all the data comes only from your iPhone. And most of us have a computer, a tablet, or all three as well, and we need all three calendars to be the same. In fact, it's critical that you have a unified calendar across multiple devices. Otherwise, you'd end up having to remember to put each appointment and each task into each of your multiple calendars, and that is chaos and malpractice just waiting to happen, and it wouldn't have to wait too long. You need a single unified calendar. And Not a big deal, because those mobile calendars on an iPhone or an Android phone or an Android tablet or an iPad, they draw their calendar data from back-end programs, almost all of them from either Exchange or Google Apps. And when you actually look into your Outlook, it too is drawing the same data from Google Apps or Exchange. So that's great. That gives us the unified calendar on all three devices, our PC, our tablet, our phone. If it's coming from Exchange or Google Apps, we've got one calendar. Terrific. Problem, it's an Outlook-based calendar. So the only calendaring needs that can be met are those of Outlook or less. And Outlook just isn't built for an attorney. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Outlook appointment screen. I just put it up on the screen quickly to remind you of what it looks like. Here I've got an appointment for depositions. I can say what it is I'm doing and where, and the date and the time. I can make some notes. I can set up repeats and stuff, but that's not very helpful to me. Where is my matter information? Where are all those other legal requirements we were talking about just a couple of minutes ago? None of them can be met here in Outlook. And this is the most, therefore, that we're going to get on our mobile device if we were to stop here. That's a problem. It's not good enough for a practicing attorney who wants to run their practice effectively, wants to not have to wake up in the middle of the night wondering what they've missed. That's the bad news. Here's the good news. And that is that there are legal specific calendars. There are calendars in practice management systems, not all of them, but in the better ones, that can provide all that legal specific functionality we've talked about and provide the unified calendar on all your mobile devices. So that's what I'm here to show you this afternoon, and it won't be a surprise to you that I'm going to use Amicus Attorney as my illustration. Now, Amicus Attorney, there's two flavors of it, if you will, two versions. There's a desktop version, which installs on your desktop PC and your local server, or there's a cloud version, which runs completely in the cloud on subscription for a very low monthly price. It's up to you as to which you pick. I'm going to be illustrating today using the desktop version just because it gets too complicated to try and see both at once. So let's have a look. I'm going to switch my screen into Amicus Attorney, and that's what you're looking at right here. I'm not going to try by any means to show it all to you. You can see I'm in my home screen. I've logged in as someone named Heather Gavel, and I've got a series of messages right away telling me things I've got to do. I've got deadlines. I've got some things that don't have time entries, and I have an appointment remaining today. So show me my calendar. I just have to click, and this is the Amicus Attorney calendar. Right away, I think you'll see two things. One, it's very reminiscent of Outlook in that it's got your hours, your task list, drag and drop appointments, and so on. You can understand what you're looking at and seeing right away. But two, immediately you know you're seeing something designed for attorneys because there's a client meeting, but it's on the Cooperman matter. So how many client meetings do I have a week? Many, but I know this one's on Cooperman, and you can also see that it's a hyperlink. So immediately, if I want to see more information about what's going on in the Cooperman matter, I just click on it, and there is the entire client matter file relating to Cooperman. All the people on the file, business cards for everybody, everything going on from all the documents on the file, legal research, custom information, everything right at my fingertips. So right from my calendar, I can see that I've got a meeting, and then I can see all the background information to it with a click. Obviously, right away, we have completely left Outlook behind. Nothing like that is possible. Well, let's dig a little deeper. So I'm going to put in a new appointment. We'll put it in for, I don't know, several hours, just by dragging across like that, and we'll call it depositions. Well, we had the same thing in, oops, I can't type, but anyway, in Outlook, and so it was at the court reporter's office. So that's as much as we got out of Outlook, but what else do we have available when we're using an Amicus legal specific calendar? Well, date and time is available in each. Here's the critical piece of information right here, files and people. What file does this relate to? So I can just start to type Burwood. As far as that, I got two Burwoods file. I picked the one it relates to. Who's in this meeting with me? Well, my client's Gary. There he is, Gary Burwood. So I barely had to start typing, and that information is filled in for me. But now this appointment is cross-referenced both to Gary's contact record and critically to the Burwood and Wright file, which has already become a hyperlink that I can go see that file and work on it from. As you can see, there's a wide variety of other tools available to me. For instance, reminders. I can get reminders of various kinds internally about it. I can also remind Gary, so other people, by email one day before at 11 a.m. So a day before, Gary will get a nice polite email from my practice system reminding him to come in and see me. And that can all be automated, which is great, especially if the date or something else changes. So who needs to be notified? For example, if it changes, well, you can notify other people by email, internal people by sticky or email, and so on. Great tools for collaboration, both internally and client service externally, all automated so you don't need to think about it. Repeats are obvious, and we'll talk about some of the other things in a few minutes. So it was that easy to set that up, and there's my appointment right there on the file or on my day view of my calendar. So again, now if we were to go to the Burwood and Wright matter, I just have to click there. Here's my file on Burwood and Wright. I can go in and see all my events on the file. I'll just sort them by date to make it a little easier to understand. And there's the depositions we've scheduled for today. So whether I'm working on from a matter perspective, organizing what has to go on, or whether I'm working in my calendar, all the right information is together. And remember how at the beginning we said that your calendar is really a cross-section or a combination of the matter schedules for all 75 or 150 or however many open active matters you have. Well, here you can see how that is completely automated for you. All right, what happens with things like depositions? Well, the other side isn't ready, and they want to file more material, or their client's going to be away, so they're going to adjourn it. And you know the game that can be played in the practice of law. Things can get adjourned multiple times, and sooner or later you need to be able to prove how many times it was adjourned, why, and have a record of all of that. Doing that manually, either on paper or in Outlook, is a pain, but that too can be automated. You see this little magic button here, Show Adjournments. All I have to do is click that button, and now it's going to track all adjournments for me on these depositions. So if the other side phones up and says, okay, let's put this over to the 31st, I drag and drop it to the 31st, but watch what happens on the screen. I can't move it to the 31st without putting in the reason for the adjournment. The other side requested the adjournment. Okay. Now watch what happens. It's still in my calendar, but it's grayed out, and it's telling me it was adjourned to July 31st. We go to July 31st, and there's our depositions on that matter. All right, the other side phones up again. They want to now push it to the 5th. We push it to the 5th. Other side, again, you would probably put in more interesting reasons than this, but let's just do that much for now. The other side requested the adjournment again, and there we go. Once again, we can see the record here, and if we go to the 5th, we can see there's where the new date is. Okay, now the other side phones up and wants another adjournment. By now, we're all fuming and going, no, and we're going to go before the judge and say we don't agree to that adjournment. And the other side says, oh, why not? Why not? Well, we'll just open this and see where it says Show Adjournments. We'll click the Details button, and there's all the reasons for the adjournment. You can print that out. You can read it out to the judge. You've tracked not only the adjournment, you can see it on the client file. You can put it in your client reporting, and if you need to, you've got a full record of what took place. That's an example, and only one small one, but it's an example of what a legal specific calendar can do that's important to the way we work and that other calendars simply can't do. So I'll go back to today, and let's talk for a minute about tasks, because what I've got to do today isn't just what I'm working on in terms of appointments, it's also what I've got to do in terms of this. And deadlines matter. We already know deadlines matter so much. So for example, I've got to prepare cross-examination. Again, as a litigator, it matters to me not just that I'm doing a cross-ex tomorrow, but on what matter. Again, hyperlink. And it's telling me that it's due today and it's turned it red because that's a deadline. I can't miss it. The next one is I've got to finalize a shareholders agreement. It's not due until the 29th. So it's counting down for me and telling me I've got 7 days left. And so on. Not everything has a deadline, so anything that's been on my calendar more than 1 day, it tells me how many days any given item has been on my list. So it keeps counting it down for me. And if I want to block off time to work on it, this cross-examination is not going away. It is happening tomorrow. I have to prepare it this afternoon. I can just say, okay, let's move it. I'm going to talk about that message in a second about it being set by a link. So we'll move one. Okay, many of these are set by a link. We're going to move a task over here, and we're going to fill in the time we want to do it. So tasks can be instantly scheduled in your calendar just like that. Don't let me forget to come back and talk about those links because they're very, very powerful. And here's something critical. When I've got something done, I mark it done. I tick the box. Now watch what happens here. In the foreground, I get a time entry all filled in for me. And in the background, it's marked done. Very, very powerful. The same thing with appointments. As soon as an appointment is over, this little blue icon appears in its upper right-hand corner. And when I click on it, I get a time entry for it. It even knows for appointments how long your appointment was. So there's an hour and a half time entry for me right away. There's another example of why a legal specific calendar is so superior to Outlook, which simply has no concept of billable time, let alone single-click time entries out of either your calendar or your task list, which becomes so powerful. Well, let's open up one of these tasks, or better yet, we'll just create a new one. So I'll just go in here for a new task or to-do item, and you can see that this looks very similar to the appointments. And because they're interchangeable, really, a task is simply something you've got to do without a specific time, and an appointment has a specific time. So what we want to do here is, I don't know, call the other side. And we'll put it on a file. We'll put it on, the Burwood directorship file this time. It's an average priority item. It doesn't have a deadline, but you know what? As time goes by, if I don't get to this, it's going to become increasingly important that it moves to the top of my to-do list. So here's another legal specific capability, progressive priority. So I could say every 3 business days, or maybe I want to say every 1 business day on list. And what's going to happen here is every day that's going to start out as an average priority item. Tomorrow it's going to be a high, and the 3rd day it's going to be top. It keeps moving items up to the top of my priority list, depending on what I need to do. Okay, you see this button right here? It says do. And that's because the Amicus calendar can not only remind you of what you have to do, it can do it. I want to call Janet Bailey, click do. I've got a full call record and attendance note, if you will, of making the call. Great. I need to draft a retainer on the Jameson Inc. matter. Click do, and now it's got a timer going with a time entry in behind for me, and it will draft the document for me as well. I'm just going to move on from that because we're not really here about document assembly, but in the background that's preparing the document for me. So I may not want to work just with my own calendar. I may want to see other people's calendars as well. So I'm Heather Gavel, but I may want to see what Perry Mason is working on today as well. With a single click, I can see my calendar, Heather Gavel, Perry's calendar, just like that. Or I might say, you know what, I want to see my work group. So let me see my team. And here's the calendars for all my team today, Heather, Shirley, Perry, and Jack. Here's everything each of us is doing in terms of their individual calendars, and here's a combined view. So if I want to find a time for us all to get together, I can look in the combined view and see, look, right in here at around 2 o'clock is the only time today we can get together. Put it in like that, get together, and bang, it's in everybody's calendar. Really great, easy group scheduling, which makes it very powerful for your law practice. I went to the litigation group, got a month calendar of every time anybody in my firm is going to court with a single click. So very, very powerful. Now, a lot of things when I go to schedule things, there are rules of practice as to when something might have to take place. So I have to calculate how many business days from today until that event, or between 2 days or so on. So again, a legal calendar has a great little tool called a date calculator. All you have to do is go in here and say, I want to know 15 calendar days after today. And you can set that to a different day if you like. And then what happens if it falls on a weekend or a holiday? Do I want to put it on that day, show the previous business day, the next business day? We'll show the previous business day in case this does come out on a holiday. And it's Thursday, August 6th. Show me that in my calendar. There you go. And it's showing it to me for the litigation group. I could switch in and see just my calendar, just like that. So calculating days in between, very powerful. And then you can put those calculations into links between events. So you can link 2, 3, 4, 10 events or more so that you can do automated docketing, court docketing, or intellectual property scheduling, or any other kind of scheduling by linking a series of events together. And then once you've done that once, save the links together and reuse it multiple times. So I'm going to go to my files very quickly, open a file. This is a widget co-matter. We'll open this and we'll sort it by date. And we can see that we've got a closing coming up. Some tasks have already been done in preparation for the closing, but for example, today we've got to finalize that shareholders agreement. We want to prepare for the closing right up until the 10th, which is the day before. The date of the closing changes, so it's going to change into September. And let's say September 23rd. Now watch what happens to these dates right here. Bang, all of them except the ones that have already been done are rescheduled according to the new closing date. And if we go into our calendar for any of that, for instance, September 23rd, you will see all of those rescheduled events. They've all been put into my calendar right like that. Fantastic. Okay, so obviously an extraordinarily powerful legal calendar that meets all the needs of an attorney, but it's running on my desktop. Wait, we said we wanted to be mobile as well. We have so many different devices and we need that one unified calendar to be everywhere. How do we do that? First and foremost, you can see all of that in the browser too. Whether you're on the desktop product or the cloud product, you can see it in a browser. And since all mobile devices these days have browsers, you can see it on any mobile device. Let's have a look at that. So I happen to be running Internet Explorer right now, and here I've logged in to my browser. There's my username, and it's today's date, and I have a calendar here. And we can go to our calendar in a browser. Now I could be using an iPad, a home computer, anything else, and look, here's my calendar for today, and these are all the same things. They're still hyperlinked to the same files. I can click on that hyperlink and see that same file right from here. Here is the Cooperman matter with all the same file details we saw on our desktop computer, but now I'm using a browser. I could be using my iPad or Android tablet. There's that adjourned depositions. There's that appointment for my work group to get together, and you can see all the initials of all the people in my work group. There's that time we blocked off for that task and that afternoon meeting. Everything in my calendar in Amicus is available in a browser anywhere, anytime, which gives us phenomenal mobility. You saw me build all of these things together. You can even see my little typing error there on depositions. This is all real-time connection between your browser, anywhere, anytime. Now this is a subscription part of Amicus Attorney Premium, but it's so powerful once you've got it. Okay, there's more. There's more, because while I now, with that, have the ability to have my calendar anywhere, anytime, on any device, My clients count too. Client service is such an important part of a successful practice, and clients need to be informed of the scheduling of their matter too. Obviously, if you've set up an appointment with them, you'll have sent them an invitation or whatever. They know when you're meeting with them or when they're coming with you to a closing or something else. Great. But there are many other appointments and events in the sequence of a transaction which clients don't personally participate in, and they need to know when those are taking place too. It's just great. The more informed a client is, the more happy they are with your service, the more likely they are to pay your bill and to refer you and use you again. The good news is there's a secure client portal available with Amicus which lets them do exactly that. Any appointment on their matter can be available to clients there. Now, not all of them. You can pick and choose which ones you want to share to your client, but let's have a look at that. So we'll go into Amicus again, and we'll go to our files, and we added an appointment to Burwood and Wright. So we'll go to our events. There's Burwood and Wright, and remember, we added this depositions now on August 5th. All we have to do is right-click on that and say Share in Client Portal. And now I happen to have logged in as the client here, who is Gary Burwood, into the client portal using Chrome. And here's what Gary Burwood, my client, sees as he logs in. And he can see his 2 active files with my firm, which is called Your Law Firm, or YLF. So we open his list of files. There's the Burwood and Wright matter. You can see all the documents I want to share with him, do file intake forms and other such things. And there's the appointments, and there's that deposition, spelling error still present, that we put in so that we can share it with our client. Phenomenally powerful and mobile. But wait, there's more. Because remember back at the beginning, we said that we wanted to use the native calendars in our mobile devices. The really good news is that Amicus Attorney links directly real-time to the same calendar sources that mobile devices do. In fact, the link is so real-time, Amicus itself doesn't even have to be running for that connection to be taking place and constantly updated. So remember, we said Outlook, Exchange, Google Apps, 99.9% of all mobile calendars for professionals like lawyers get their data from one of those 3. And so does Amicus, or rather Amicus connects to that so that they share all of that, which means that anything you put into the Amicus calendar with all those super powerful legal specific features are immediately in the native calendar on your phone or your tablet as well. And the reverse also applies. So if you're on the go, if you're in court and the judge says, are you available to continue this hearing on Thursday the 15th, you pull up your iPhone, see that you're available on Thursday the 15th, put in an appointment there, and then that's immediately in your calendar in Amicus. So your paralegal back at the office the next minute who's looking to schedule something else for you will look at that day on Thursday the 15th and see that you're already booked. This really then is the best of both worlds in terms of mobile and legal calendaring, because what you get is a phenomenally deep legal calendaring features, and I only showed you the quickest flying examples of some of those features, but you get all of those legal specific features which we really need. They make our lives better, and they build more money for us because every task and appointment in our calendar becomes an instant time entry, and yet at the same time they're available to us in a browser. They're available to our clients in a secure portal if we choose to share them, and they're going to appear in the native calendars on our mobile devices like iPhones and iPads. So that's really how you can have your cake and eat it too. That's how you can be mobile and meet the very specific and specialized calendaring needs of an attorney in today's world. Thank you very much for taking half an hour this afternoon to listen to me and to share that with me. It's been my real pleasure to talk to you about it. I'm aware that I couldn't possibly have answered all your questions about it. If you want to ask me something more, there's my email address. If you want to find out more about Amicus Attorney, it's amicusattorney.com, and there's a lot of information for you there just about everything else it does from a practice management perspective, because it does so much more than the calendaring we've just talked about.